Today's video is going to be really exciting because I'm going to teach you something that you'll use every single time you speak Russian, and that is verb conjugation. Now, if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. I'm going to explain it to you here in a minute. But the reason it's so exciting is because it allows you to move beyond trite touristy phrases or pre-memorized conversational dialogue and actually communicate with Russian speakers on a personal level. You'll be able to share your own thoughts, feelings, ideas, and experiences with other Russians. Давайте начнем. Let's get started. Okay, let's first start by describing what verb conjugation is. And if you already know what that is, you can jump to this time slot where I'll start talking about the first conjugation in Russian. But if you have no idea what verb conjugation is, like I didn't when I first started to learn Russian, it's a pretty simple concept. The endings of Russian verbs change based on the person or thing that the verb relates to. Okay, that's kind of a mouthful, so let me give you a real example here to help you understand. If we wanted to say, I am reading the book, reading is the verb and I'm doing it. So that would get one kind of ending because of I. But if I wanted to say, we are reading the book, then it gets a different ending because it's we, not I. This is going to make more sense as we go along. As we go throughout the video, it's going to become a lot more clear. So if you just kind of sort of understand it right now, I think that's going to be okay. And this may seem a little weird to you, but you can actually do some really cool things with it. And I'll describe those here after we go through the different conjugations here. In Russian, there are two conjugations. And that just means there's two different types of endings based on some certain different characteristics here. We're only going to talk about what they call the first conjugation in this video. So we need to understand, how do we know if a verb takes the first conjugation or the second conjugation? Generally, verbs that end in the ate miyaki znak or the yate miyaki znak get the first conjugation. Now, that's not always true, but because there are a few different exceptions and we're just introducing verb conjugations today, I'm going to keep this kind of at a high level and keep it fairly easy so that you can first understand the principle, and then you can go in future videos, we'll talk about what all the different exceptions and nuances are there. Let me give you the first example here. The verb znat, to know. Do you see it how it ends in the ate miyaki znak? So that means it's going to take the first conjugation. But if we take this verb, говорить, to speak, you see how it ends in the ite miyaki znak. The E generally dictates a second conjugation. Don't worry about second conjugation for right now, but just notice the difference. Pretty simple concept to understand. Verbs ending in ate miyaki znak or yate miyaki znak get the first conjugation. Now, there are a few other verbs out there that do get first conjugation that don't end in those endings. But again, for today, we're going to keep it simple and we're not going to address those issues right now. So now that we know which verbs take the first conjugation, we need to know what the endings are. And knowing what the endings are and putting the endings onto verbs, that is conjugating a verb. It's really easy to do. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to drop some letters and then you're going to add the correct ending. That's how you conjugate a verb in Russian. In the first conjugation's case, you're going to drop the te miyaki znak and you're going to add the correct ending. So if we start with chitat, we know it's first conjugation because of the ate miyaki znak. We're going to drop the te ya and then add the correct ending. I'm going to give you the endings first, and then I'm going to go through and give you some real examples. And keep in mind, as I mentioned previously, the endings are dictated by the subject of the verb or the thing that the verb is talking about. So here are the different endings. For ya or I, we add the ending you. For ti or you, singular and formal, we add the ending yesh. For on, ana, and ano, he, she, it, we add the ending yet. And you'll notice these first three personal pronouns, they're all singular. The next group are all plural, and that's generally how you're going to see them presented in textbooks and websites and things like that. They put the singular on the left and the plural on the right. So the plural starts with мы, we, and that ending is yem. The vui is the plural or formal form of you. That gets the ending yetje. And ani, they, gets the ending yut. Now, one thing that you'll want to notice here is that the ya and the ani forms are generally, again, not always, there's always exceptions, but generally the same. you're just adding a T at the beginning of the ya ending. You see how ya is you, ani is yut. I only tell you that now because when you get into the exceptions, that'll help you know that correlation there and help you memorize the exceptions a little bit easier. Hey, you guys, if you're liking the video so far and getting something out of it, smash that like button. I really appreciate it. Now that we know what the endings are, let's go and look at a few live cases here of how to actually add the endings to the words. So let's start with the verb chitat, to read. If you don't have that verb memorized yet, this is how I learned it. To me, chitat sounds like she taught. So she taught them how to read. That's how I remembered it until it got ingrained in my little brain there. Now, let's take the chitat verb. This is called the infinitive form, meaning the word without any changes, without any conjugation. Now we're going to start with ya. So what we do is we drop the temyakiznak, and you're going to do that on all first conjugation words. You're going to drop the temyakiznak, and then you're going to add the appropriate ending depending on, again, what it's relating to. So if we wanted to say, I'm reading, we would say ya chitayu. See how we dropped the temyakiznak and added the you. If we wanted to say, you are reading, we would say the chitayesh. If we wanted to say he, she, or it is reading, we would say ana chitayet. Мы читаем. Вы читаете. Они читают. Pretty simple. Do you see how we just dropped the temyakiznak and added the correct ending there? Okay, let's do another one. And this one, I'm not going to give you the answers right away. I know you don't have those endings memorized, so I'll put them on the screen here. And I want you to see if you can put the endings on there correctly. And if you have to pause the video while you do this, do that. This is a good exercise to actually learn conjugation and not just watch a YouTube video. Okay, let's take the verb znat. If you haven't memorized this word, it means to know. This is how I memorized it. Znat, and I hope this isn't too graphic for you, but it sounds like snot, right? Although it's a z not, but it sounds like snot, and snot comes out of your nose, and znat means to know. All right? If you already know it, great. If you don't, I think that's a little mnemonic there that'll help you memorize it. Let's conjugate this verb. Here's the infinitive form, or the verb without any changes to it. Here are the endings. I'm giving those to you ahead of time. So if we wanted to say, I know, what would we do there? I'm going to give you just a second to figure that out. Remember, we need to drop two letters. So we're going to drop the temyakiznak, and then we're going to add which ending if we want to say, I know. That's right. We're going to add the you. So it would be ya znаю. I'm going to do one or two more of these, but I'm not going to go through them all because I know you're smarter than that. I don't want to talk down to you there. Let's jump over and do vui. How would you say vui as in a formal you know? Right, we drop the temyakiznak and we add the yetje ending. Вы знаете. Here's all the other endings for znat. Я знаю, ты знаешь, он знает, мы знаем, вы знаете, они знают. It's really not that hard, is it? All we're doing is determining is it a first or second conjugation verb. We're dropping the temyakiznak for first conjugation verbs, and then we're adding the correct ending there. And what's cool about this is, do you remember at the beginning of the video I said there's kind of some cool things that you can do with verb conjugation? Well, this is it. In English, we would have to answer the question like, what are you doing? Well, I'm reading. Well, in Russian, they can just say chitayu. And that just means I'm reading, and we know it's I because of the ending you. Or maybe it just got really quiet in the next room and your partner looks at you like, is everything okay there? And you just look up at them and say, chitayut. That just means they're reading. Pretty cool, huh? I love how that Russian is able to eliminate words because word order isn't important, and the endings of words dictate other parts of the sentence. I think that's really cool. Okay, this is a very important and basic part of the Russian language. You need to memorize these endings. I'm going to put them all in the show notes below so that you can copy and paste them into flashcards or whatever study aid you're using. And let me tell you, when I first started learning Russian, granted I was a freshman in high school, but it was overwhelming to me. I didn't understand how every single word had a different ending based on all these different things, and it just seems so overwhelming. Now when I'm speaking Russian, if I learn a new verb and I see, oh, it's a first conjugation verb, I don't have to go through it all because I already know the endings, and it just comes naturally. Он читает, ты думаешь, мы понимаем. It just comes out and it makes sense to me, and it will be that way to you too. Let me give you one little tip to help you get there a little bit faster. It's important to memorize the endings, like with a ya personal pronoun, I need the you ending. But it will help you speak a little more freely and get to endings a little faster if you say them in sentences. Я читаю, and then go on to ты читаешь. What you're training your brain there is you're hearing ты and you're hearing the yesh ending, and you're putting them together. And then once you feel like you've got them fairly solidified in your brain there, then mix it up and say, он читает, мы читаем, я читаю, вы читаете. You see how I'm kind of bouncing back and forth and all around? That way you haven't ingrained it and you haven't memorized it in the right order, but you're actually associating the correct endings with the correct personal pronouns. The more you speak this, the easier it gets and the more fluent you become. And I promise you one day you're not even going to think about the endings. They're just going to come. It's a pretty cool feeling. Now, your next step in learning first conjugation would be go on to learn the different verbs that have different little nuances with different little endings. I'm going to talk about those in future videos, so don't worry about it right now. And that kind of also leads me into the segue where I ask you to subscribe to the channel. Not because I want to increase my subscribers, but honestly because I've got a lot more good content coming out, which will help you speak better Russian. Mondays, I do vocabulary. Wednesdays, I do a grammar principle similar to this. And Fridays, we keep it kind of fun and light, and I teach you something culturally that's interesting there. So be sure and subscribe to the channel so you get those updates. That's the basics of the first conjugation. Not too hard, right? If you memorize those endings and learn when to recognize first conjugation verbs, you've got it. How's that feel? Feels pretty good, huh? Ну хорошо, тогда это все. Спасибо и до свидания.